Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Intro to Cultural Anthropology. I'm Faye Goodman. I'm a cultural anthropologist, and I will have the pleasure of leading you through these next 5 weeks of learning. I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you, and for you to know me a little better, and for us to learn much more about the world around us. This is a very exciting class. If you haven't had anthropology before, I think that you're really going to like it. So, okay, with that said, this quick introductory video has a list of 3 ways to go awry in my class and 3 ways to succeed in this class that I think will be very helpful as you move forward. So let's get right into it. The first way that students go awry in this class is to not turn their work in on time. You'll notice that in our left-hand margin over there, you'll have the faculty expectations, which detail when things are done and the penalties for not turning them in on time. Also in the announcements section of the front page of our class, there's a post that says discussion expectations. And both of those pieces of information are going to be very important for you. But I'll recap it quickly just so you know in your head what you're thinking about. Okay, if the assignment is a large assignment, which means you are loading it up to Waypoint. It's something that you had to write out. It's either your final draft of your final paper or one of the other written assignments in this class. It is possible to turn those assignments in up to 3 days late, but you will have a 10% penalty on the points that you get for each of those days. So basically, if you don't get it in by Monday night, on Tuesday, you'll get a full letter grade lower, and on Wednesday, 2 full letter grades lower, and Thursday, 3 full letter grades lower. And by the end of Thursday night, you won't get any points at all. So important to know. However, for our smaller assignments, the quizzes and particularly the discussion forums in this class, I don't accept any late assignments. That means that your initial post in the discussion forums is due on Thursday and that you must respond to 3 of your peers by Monday at midnight. And this is not meant to be punitive. I understand that all of you have busy lives. However, this is a 5-week class, and there's sort of 2 pieces to this. One is that once you get behind in this class, because you are a parent, you have a full-time job, maybe both of those things, you have a very busy life and you get behind. Once you get behind in this class, it is very, very difficult to get caught back up, because next week you're going to have the same amount of work and the same busy life. That's part 1. But the second part of why it's important to have those things in on time is that the discussion forums for this class are the experience of being in class. It's the place where we talk with one another, where we engage with the material, where we really learn what's going on more than just reading it. And that discussion happens in the week that it happens. So if you don't participate in the discussion forums during the week that it's occurring, you're not part of the conversation. You're not commenting on other students in a way that lets them comment back to you. You're not sharing the really clever and interesting things you have to say about that topic in a way that the other students are going to read it. If you post after the weekends, nobody's going to read your work. So those discussion forums and the quizzes in this class must be done by their actual due date in order to get credit. Okay, the second way that students go awry in my class is to use non-academic sources in their work. This is particularly important in the final paper you're going to write and the other written assignments that you have. You want to be sure that you're using peer-reviewed academic journals and reliable sources of statistics, such as the U.S. Census. This is because what you're doing here is intended to be research and not the quoting of someone else's opinion, right? So if the really interesting information you got came from Joe Bob's blog, it's probably not necessarily a source of scholarly information. Generally speaking, if the source you're looking at doesn't provide an author, it's not a scholarly source. I'm going to post a couple of different comments in our announcements section, which detail what's okay as a scholarly source to use and what's not okay to use. So please be sure to read that, because it'll really help you back up your work with reliable sources of information. And the third way that students go awry in my class is accidental or intentional plagiarism. I totally understand how this can happen. You've just Googled the thing that we're studying and you came up with this really fascinating piece of information and you cut it and you paste it into your discussion because you're excited about it and you want to share it with the class. But if you have not provided a citation at the end of that quote and a full reference at the end, other people reading it are going to think that that those words are your own, that those thoughts and analysis are your own. And we don't want to do that. We want to be sure that we are giving proper attribution for the people whose work we are using to support our own analysis. So that's very important. It's also very important in the written assignments you turn in. I want to say that every time I've taught this class, students turn in papers that they didn't write. They turn in work they didn't write. They turn in work that they have spent a lot of time carefully cutting and pasting from 5 or 6 different sources so that it looks like they wrote it, but they still didn't. And actually, they spent so much time trying to paste it all together, they could have just written a paper, saved themselves some time. They always get caught. They get caught, and then they fail the class, and they get turned into the university. And I really don't want that to happen to you. Not just because we don't want to plagiarize, but because you are paying to have this class to learn about the world around us. And if you are using somebody else's work, you have cheated yourself out of that learning experience that you desire for yourself. So I really want to encourage you to be sure that the work you turn in is your own. Every single thing you submit to Waypoint gets run through Turnitin, and if it is cribbed from anywhere on the internet, I'm going to know, and you're going to get a 0. We don't want that to happen. So remember, I'm using the same Google. If you can find it, so can I. Okay, so now that we're done with the kind of stressful part, here are 3 great ways to succeed in my class. How to do really well, get a good grade, learn a lot, have a good experience interacting with your fellow students. Number 1, please do all the reading before posting in the discussion forums or doing your assignments. There is a lot of reading for this class. Now you have to think we're compressing an entire semester into a 5-week class. There's a lot of reading, but on the other hand, it's really fascinating. I mean, I know I'm an anthropologist, so of course I think it's fascinating, but if you think about it, the cool thing about anthropology is basically it's telling you stories about the ways that people live together that are unfamiliar to you. It's sort of like science fiction, except for it's not people on another planet. It's people that are sharing the same planet that you are. So do the reading, and then you will sound more like you know what you're talking about. You'll have a deeper and more thorough analysis. Your fellow students will enjoy what you've read a lot more, and so will I. Number 2, turn in all your work on time. I know that we already talked about this in the How Students Go Awry section, but here are some like positive ways to make sure that you turn in your work on time. Number 1, you'll notice we have that calendar for each week that say when your assignments are due. If you know that you are the sort of person who procrastinates, and you know if you're that person, tell yourself that all of your due dates are 1 day earlier than they are. Put them into your personal calendar as 1 day earlier than they are, and then you've given yourself a little cushion to be sure that you get your work in on time. Second thing you need to do to help yourself get your work in on time is to have a backup plan. This is an online class. Having a computer and access to the internet is a requirement for the class. But sometimes technology is a pain, right? Sometimes things go awry. So if you have a plan ahead of time for what you're going to do if your internet access goes down or your computer isn't working, then you're not going to have either of those problems. What I often suggest is that students talk to a friend or family member ahead of time and say, I'm taking this class online and my computer's in good shape, but if I get into a crisis, can I come over to your house and turn in my assignment to be sure that it's on time? It's also a great idea to have a good picture in your head of where the local library is. That's a great place to also get internet access if your computer goes down. So is for a lot of people their work site. Make sure you have a thumb drive that you can pop into your USB port. You can download the assignment that you were about to upload and couldn't do it onto the thumb drive, run to another computer, pop it up, put in your password, pop it up. You'll be ready to go. Okay, so have a backup plan. That will save you a world of anxiety when it's 10 o'clock at night on the night that the assignment is due because you didn't think about putting it in the day before, and all of a sudden your internet goes down. Okay, and then my third helpful hint as you move into the class is that, the discussion forums for these classes are so fascinating. It's your chance to really share your own thoughts and opinions, to hear from your fellow students what they have to think. But sometimes folks are not entirely clear on what makes a good discussion forum entry. Here's what I think makes a good discussion forum entry. Good to know, because I'll be grading yours. Number one, it's going to clearly show that you have read the material and you understand what's going on. You may disagree with something you read in this class, and that's fine. Your discussion forum entry can clearly state that you do not agree with what the author of our text has to say. But that post still has to show that you have read it and understand his argument first, okay? So, show that you've read the material, and then add in some of your own analysis. What do you think about that? How does it connect to something you've had in another class? How is it perhaps illustrated by an experience you've had in your life? Okay, so it's not going to be enough to just recap what it says in the text. You also have to add in some analysis, maybe an outside source or two that made you think of something. Like, for instance, you are writing about race. In our second week of class, we'll be discussing race and racism in the US and around the world. And you think to yourself, wow, I really followed all that stuff that's been going on in Ferguson, Missouri over the last year, and I'd like to add in some of that information. That would be a great opportunity for you to discuss your experience of what you thought when all of that was going on, it's still going on, and to support what you're thinking with some great scholarly sources. Okay, so remember, not enough to just say, Crapo says this in our text. Not enough to say, this is my opinion about what's going on. You want a nice balance. What I read, what I understand about it, backed up with some good sources. So, that's it. Basically, turn in your work on time. Don't plagiarize. Tell me what you think about what we're reading. And it's going to go really well. I really look forward to learning more about all of you and about sharing this class with you. I hope you have a great day. Bye.